All right, can y'all hear me? I switched to a different type of microphone. So if there's issues with sound, let me know before I get too deep into this. You guys know the drill by now. Even though there's only 3 of you in the chat, you know the deal right now. Just drop your questions in the chat and I'll answer them. This is largely based off of the quality of questions you ask, so the better the stream will be is dependent on you guys. So, Mr. Tula, can you rate my routine? In the morning before work, 20 minutes of vacuum hanging, first 5 minutes at 2.5 pounds, then 10 minutes at 5 pounds, last at 2.5 pounds, and then 10 minutes of air pumping, first 5 minutes at 3 minutes at 8 inches of mercury, 2 minutes at 10 inches of mercury, rest for 2 minutes, repeat for 5 more minutes. Okay. Then at night, 40 minutes of vacuum extending with the apex, and then repeat the pumping routine. So 20 minutes of hanging, 40 minutes of extending, and 20 minutes of pumping on rest on Sundays. So, hello, Christian. I'm not exactly sure why you're trying to combine hanging and extending, especially if it is going to be the high tension extender, because in my opinion, it's just like going to add to a lot more overwork. What you really should be doing is just focusing on one like fatigue set. So like one fatiguing session, and the other 2 sessions are going to be more your dilation and your shape training, and that's going to be a lot lower tension. So if you really want to do like any kind of shape training for length, you're better off of like when you get back home from work or at work, wear an all-day stretcher to keep it in that shape. But I would not, like, if anything, I would just cut the vacuum hanging for 20 minutes in the morning more than anything else. You guys can't see my chat. Give me 1 second. Pop out chat. Properties. Switch to... That's not right. Sorry guys, technical difficulties. We want this one. We're gonna... There we go. And I think we closed the one behind it. Yep. Okay. So, Mac, when will the products be back in stock? So the only thing that's not in stock on Peak Physique is the 2 1/8 size cylinder and cock rings. So since we use some cock rings in the big box sets, those are out of stock for right now, but they should be in stock in the next week or 2. And then, what is the best pump for one-handed use? I would use probably the Peak Physique Auto Pump. Do I have one out and about? No. No, I don't. But basically, they're all pretty easy to use one-handed, if I'm being honest. But like, if you have like mobility issues of any kind or like grip issues, you want the smart pump because it just does the pumping for you. Main thing you just got to be careful of is being able to press the button to turn off the power, so that way it stops pumping. Kenny, hello Destroyer, and I think someone else, but we'll get back to it. What's up, BD? I was just curious what y'all were working on a discoloration lotion. Is this true? Yeah. So we've been busy as all hell, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, there's so many moving parts right now, but we're looking at like a 2 or 3 step solution. Right now I'm looking at a 1-step solution, and that's just kojic acid soap. Middling response so far, but it's going to be like some kind of exfoliator if we do the 2-step, followed by some kind of lotion that helps dilate and remove the discoloration. So basically you have to pull up the discoloration with shedding the skin, and then you need to protect the new skin with the lotion, is the most simple way to put it. Okay, Jamar, what does your girth expansion after a session look like, and how long does it last for both mid shaft and the base? I know everyone's expansions vary, so I'm curious. Well, I don't track mid shaft because like as soon as I put a cock ring on to measure, it balloons up with some lymphatic buildup. So like I can literally go from like 7 1/4 base to like 8. with like 10 minutes of just wearing a cock ring. So that's not really something I track. But like for mid-shaft girth, I usually, so I'm 6.25 now. I'm looking for about a 6% increase in girth. So like that's going to be like what, 6.5, 6.6. Normally, hello Casey. But normally it's nothing crazy. The main thing I'm looking for is fullness with some vascularity and very little edema. Robert restarted with his frenulum injury. Let's see. Hold on. Thanks for the month off recommendation for the frenulum injury. Slowly restarted, and it's been great. I'm assuming your erection quality has been immaculate, and you probably gained a lot of sensitivity back. But I'm glad you're finally back at it. And Christian, you can do whatever you want on this stream. Just don't make it weird in chat, please. That's my main thing. Yo, at BD at 19, what was your size? Because I'm 19 and want to know how your gains were during that time. So I went from 6 to 7.5 between like 16 and 17, and then I had to stop doing PE for a bit because I was more focused on like trying to get into college for like basketball. And then I didn't really do PE in that time frame, like between 18, 19, 20, and I picked up it again around 21, 22. But I definitely had my better gains when I was younger, but that's because I didn't do as much PE, I think, and therefore I couldn't really stress the tissues out. And since you're young, you recover like a weed. Puberty might have did a little bit for me too, but I doubt it did anything crazy compared to like normal. You know what I mean? So what about Lugol's iodine for discoloration? Okay, so there are so many better different skin peels for discoloration that are way safer. Iodine's like neurotoxic, and it can like literally fuck with your DNA. So don't use iodine. Like you can get a glycolic acid at a relatively high concentration. Not that we recommend it, but there's way safer ways to do skin peels. I would personally do like a 10 to 20% glycolic acid peel once a week and then moisturize the shit out of it, and you're not going to burn off your nerve endings. Iodine might be a little faster, but it's crazy dangerous compared to like actual skin care formulas. Let's see. First, why I signed. Is it possible to get stretch marks on your D? Yes, I have them, but since my discoloration is so bad, they're very hard to see. So as I work up this discoloration, they'll be more prominent. They're not really from penis enlargement. It's more from fetish pumping. So I would just tell you guys, don't fetish pump. It's the easiest way to avoid them. Like I used to like pump for an hour and a half to 2 hours at some point, and sure, I get a lot of edema, but it's going to be all under the skin, and therefore your skin's going to stretch and you'll get stretch marks. So don't do it. Okay. So Tula, I do hanging before some length work before pumping, so I can reduce the time to 10 minutes in the pump. My main routine is at night. So if you're going to try to increase expansion, though, just do some massage mechanics. It'll take 5 minutes. You don't have to worry about putting on the vacuum hanger. It's that simple. Oh, sorry. I don't know why I wanted to wear a hat, and I just decided against it for a bit, but whatever. But yeah, anyway, massage is going to be way better for any potential girth work in general. So just do that instead. What's the protocol for maintaining gains? About to hit my girth gain goal, so pump up once a week or so. Like really, you shouldn't lose gains. You'll lose a bit of flexibility. So like we're talking like, let's say you get to 6 inches, you'll revert down to like 5.8, 5.9, but then it's pretty consistent if your erection quality is consistent. For me, or I mean more accurately, you need to worry that you actually didn't just have chronic edema. And the way I teach it, it isn't really that big of an issue anymore. But if you're looking for like a maintenance routine, like 3 to 5 times a week, 15-minute sets of pumping to keep your erection quality immaculate, and it should just keep that tissue flexible enough that you won't see any reversion. Okay. Can you describe your experience with edema after dropping fat pad percentage? So I only really noticed a major difference the first time I lost fat. And I think it's because, like, since I had a lot less water in my system, my body would train the vascularity of the penis more. And now, since it's already so well trained, I don't get that much edema anymore. I am back cutting now, and I have noticed a little bit less edema than normal, but like I only lost like 4 to 5% of my body fat. That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point. I lost a little bit. I saw a little less edema, but it's nothing crazy at this moment. It is much more helpful going from, like, let's say 30% body fat down to 20 to 15 than it is going from 20 to 15. So piggybacking off my original Girth question, how much length do you lose when you are that much thicker than usual after a session? You shouldn't really lose any length, if at all, because you're stretching in both directions, right? So like when you're in a pump, you're going to expand outwards a lot, but there's also going to be vertical pressure as well. And that's going to compensate for any like distal expansion. Like I'm technically shorter in the tube, but it's because like my base is so thick, it can't get down to my actual pubic bone. So I would not worry about it all that much. Like you can literally measure and find out. A lot of guys are like a quarter of an inch, a half an inch longer after pumping. Let's see, what about AHA and BHA for skin peels? Well, let's look those up real quick because there's so many acronyms. And I'm glad I did not pull up desktop just yet because I had some of my own nudes up for a thing I'm filming. Let's see. Oh, so AHA is going to be like a glycolic acid, and then BHA is going to be a salicylic acid. So I've had more experience with glycolic acid. I think they're a little less harsh AHAs. So this is something we got to ask Red about because he's actually my skincare guy. But in general, I would go with the AHA family before the BHA family. Now this is an interesting question. How can I gain the work ethic to sustain PE? I did it for a month straight, but lost my time to do it. So you're describing two different things. If you're too busy to do PE, that's one thing. But if you're too lazy to do PE, that's a completely separate thing. Like I am exceptionally busy most days anymore. So like I like to think that you can only do 3 big tasks a day. So like if you're dead set on growing your dick, that has to be one of your top 3 tasks. So like for me, that is work, that is weightlifting, and that is PE. Anything else is going to have to take a back seat to compare to those 3. So you need to figure out how to divvy up your own workload and set your own priorities, the easiest way to do it. That being said, 40 minutes at most a day shouldn't be that hard for most guys to find unless they're working like 9 to 10 hour shifts, but let's see, YSN, is it possible to get stretch marks on your D? We did that one. Kenny, I personally don't care about discoloration, but if you had a simple product to apply for the to help it, it'd be an easy purchase. Yeah, so like at most will be 2 steps. It's just a matter of actually making sure it's safe before we do anything. We do have a few manufacturers picked out, but you know, it's been crazy here. Mr. Peanut, is it possible to get similar gains doing manuals compared to stretchers, or does it really depend on the person how much they react to it? So tension is tension. You can generate 5 pounds of force with your arms as same as you can do with a hanger or an extender, right? What it really comes down to is how much of a pain in the ass do you want it to be. Devices make it easier and easier to measure the pound force applied to your penis. So like I can put an extender on, wear it at 10 pounds for an hour straight, and I know it's going to be 10 pounds the entire time. My arm's going to tire out after about 20 seconds. So doing that and not being able to do, let's say, work at the same time is the main reason why most people switch to devices right away, because it's just easier. I gained an inch with just manuals. It's definitely possible. It's just a pain in the ass. I'm trying to gain girth. I'm also gaining length. Not complaining. Is this common? I would assume it's slightly common. So again, you're stretching in two different directions. You're going to be stretching upwards a little bit, but you're going to mostly be stretching the girth of the penis with a pump, right? So you're going to be gaining 90% of the way with girth, and then probably 10% in length. And if you have erection quality issues, your length's probably going to gain faster than your girth originally. Robert, we should call them hood holes instead of piss pools. I'm cut, so no. And let's see, Peanut, what are you doing for girth? If you don't mind me asking, we'll find out. And it's my intermediate girth routine. Wow, that's an old one. If it's like 3 years ago, I think. Who knows? Meditate. Have you ever tried Masteron? It's usually not a good idea to say that you did illicit substances on live video. But in general, Masteron is honestly an underrated steroid when you look at the scientific literature, because what it does is it makes other compounds a lot stronger. So basically what it does is there's sex hormone binding globulin. Globulin, not goblin. Globulin. And what it does is binds all your testosterone up, so that way it doesn't just burn out through the rest of your body. So if we suppress sex hormone binding globulin, we'll have more free testosterone. And then another thing Masteron does as well is it basically blocks estrogen activity, more accurately mask estrogen activity. So you can get the benefits of an AI with the benefits of lower your SHGB, sex hormone, SHBG, there we go. And you'll have more effective testosterone or what other compounds you're taking with Masteron. So I wouldn't really make a huge cycle out of Masteron, but I would consider putting in a lot of stacks that don't have a lot of DHT-based stuff in it. And always do injectables. Orals suck. Just in general, orals suck. They're terrible on your liver. You get like maybe 40 to 60% of the actual dose. So trust me. So as far as we know, I'm gaining 1.5 inch of length. It becomes difficult to gain more length. So should we continue doing stretches even after 1.5 inch, or was it worth any more by doing? Okay, so that was a bit of a mess, but what he was saying is most people stop gaining around 1.5 inches of length. It gets a lot harder. So should we even try to go further? And I think there's a bit of a misnomer that people plateau around your first inch, inch and a half. You know what you have to do during that time? You stop training PE for 2 months and you come back and you're going to gain just as easily as you did 6 to 8 months before the initial plateau. And this is like the basis of my theory, is that with planned breaks, you can gain literally as much dick as you could possibly want. Like I went from 6 to 9 inches in about a decade. Granted, I could probably do it faster now with just taking breaks. So there's no set limit. There's never been a set limit. People just make it up because they stopped gaining. Therefore, since they are so full of themselves, that must be it. But trust me when I say this, guys, you can get as much dick as you want if you want to put the decade in of work. Okay. Okay, so I'm assuming this is about glycolic acid, right, Red? Some have both the AHA and BHA, but only use once a week for your dick. So potentially you can alternate is what you're telling me, dude. In general, though, like, we have such thin dick skin. Like, mine's probably the thickest on average, and that's just by genetic coding. Most of you guys are gonna have thinner dick skin than me. So, like, be very careful of any kind of skin peel down there, guys. Let's see. Eddie, is the D getting veinier with normal PE? Yeah, so think about it this way. As you build up your bicep, the vein that runs up your bicep also gets bigger because it's handling more blood pressure coming from the bicep. So the veins in your penis naturally will get bigger as the blood supply and the size of the tissue gets bigger. So like it is a good sign that PE is working for you. Additionally, if we're doing something like clamping, it literally signals your blood vessels, also your veins, to grow. So just keep with it. Okay, good to know. So, red, for the BHA and AHA, shouldn't be used frequently as it smooths out the skin over time, and too much will damage the nerves in an already sensitive organ like your meat. What would you recommend? Like, how many months of use could you have without really worrying about damage? If you don't have a good answer off the top of your head, just let me know. In red, it's fine if you're late. The holidays suck. I get it. Yeah, like I am such a Grinch, guys. Like, I don't think we should be selling Christmas trees right now. We should not have been selling Christmas trees at Halloween. Like, so anyway, I like Thanksgiving because there's less obligation, but I fucking hate Christmas. PG, yo BD, how do you doing? I'm doing all right. I'm a bit tired, but that's from the diet. Love the content you are putting out. I want to know how common it is to get blisters with vacuum hanging, even if you tape it. So I did not get, so hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I did not start getting blisters frequently until I got too big for the current vacuum belt I have, which is why I ordered literally 1,000 of the next size up potentially. So keep an eye out for that if you guys are like the XL size. But when it comes to like avoiding blisters, a few things you can do. 1, make sure you're using the right size equipment. 2, unhook the weight often. And that's going to like reset the pressure variance. So that way, if there's a little pocket forming under your skin, it'll reset and then recongeal back together. And then take the device off often. So that way the pressure is completely gone. So like when I first started doing vacuum hanging, I never got a blister. I literally did not get a blister for the first 18 months of vacuum hanging, because what I did was I wore it for 30 minutes. I took it off, inspected, left it off for like 5 to 10 minutes, put it back on, did the next 30 minutes, same idea. And then a month passed, we moved that up to like 45 minutes. Another month passed, I can do an hour, no issue. And since it's been like 3 to 4 years since I started vacuum hanging, I don't have to really worry about blisters until I finally hit the peak size of my bell. How big is your girth at the base? Okay, so it's a bit hard to tell because I I have pretty big nuts, and they get in the way. So it's kind of hard to measure, but like before you get to the scrotum, it's like 6.5, and then once you get behind the scrotum, it's like 7.25. So I would say I'm about 7 inches base girth, like true base girth. Okay, hold on. One thing I don't like about YouTube's chat system is that it will just randomly jump. So, discrete task. Love the vibration pumping so far. I use it and flirt with edging stimulation during a session. I have very good self-control. My strain quality out of the pump is crazy good, so I'm assuming you mean expansion, compared to my last 1.5 years. Like, I love hearing this stuff. I just hope I can replicate this more, because like I'm the only one that's been able to like show any efficacy with with vibration therapy in general. Seeing this stuff is good and it gives me hope, but it's been 6 months now since it came on the scene, and there's not many people that have published pictures. I'm not expecting people to publish pictures, but I'm glad you like it. Mr. Peanut, what's your favorite Vigor flavor? I like blue raspberry. Like, I forced Hink to get blue raspberry because I thought the sour would do very well with the malic acid. Fruit punch isn't bad. It's a little sweet, but I don't expect any more flavors anytime soon. Like, a lemonade would be pretty easy. But like what if we're talking about for like economies of scale, I can get, let's say 5,000 units of blue raspberry at $2 to $3 less per unit than I could if I did 2,500 of blue raspberry in a new flavor, right? So as a small business, you got to make those sacrifices that, like, I can get you a sour flavor and a sweet flavor, but I can't get you a very specific flavor. What's good, BDO? You know, not much. No, I mean, it's been a very productive week so far, but how much expansion should I aim for if I go from 6 inches girth pre-session to 6.5 session, no cockering, not much edema, still semi-vascular? You are right on target. I would not pump up any more than you really need to, because like what you're telling me is that you're at like 8% expansion, right? So I would not go beyond that. That's when you get to the edema range, and then that's where we can start having sensitivity issues in the short term, and then we have to worry more about the edema draining than actually growing, and that can actually interfere a bit with the growth. So just keep what you're doing. Double Dragons Collector, how do you know you're doing 5 pounds on the extender? So it depends on what extender you have, but like most of the top 3 most popular will have springs. Let's see if I can pull up Massive Novelties. And on those springs, there will be gauges, right? So, okay. Switch to, was it desktop and face? So on my screen, this pushes down, and then whenever the 5 is not visible, you're doing slightly more than 5 pounds on both sides. And then obviously it goes all the way up to 33. Don't do that. I don't even think Massive Novelties recommends that. But that's how you can tell that your extender is using that much weight. And if you like look at the hog stretcher, I'm pretty sure they have the same markers. It's just going to be different depending on what springs they use. Let's see, face only. And back to questions. Can extending replace massage before pump? I don't want to say yes, but like it depends what you're trying to do. I find the massage to be much more beneficial for girth than anything else outside of pumping, because it relaxes the tissue before you stretch it out even more. Therefore, you're not fighting the tissue as you pump. Now, the extender is going to basically train the tissue to be longer. So what I've noticed is, like, if I use an extender for 40 minutes before I pump, I can get like a 1/4 inch longer in the cylinder than I would without using the extender. So if we're trying to do length, it makes a lot more sense to extend and then pump, because those are the fibrils that will be fatigued. Therefore, they'll be even easier stretched compared to, like, if we're going for girth, focus on getting the girth bands to relax with massage, then you can pump up. And hello, Toady. Let's see. So back to the vacuum hanger from, not vacuum hanger, vibration from discrete task. I understand the advanced tech or danger, but I feel like there's something very beneficial to strain quality. Like, trust me, dude, if I didn't think it worked, I would not have made 3 videos on it. So I just hope more people can see the same results as me. And I'm a little mad at myself because, like, I trusted someone and they were just wrong. They told me to use way too much power than I really should have. And in that sense, I walked it back. I have better erection quality and I'm gaining at the same rate. So, like, if I could do it all over again, I would tell people to start at literally half the RPM or power requirements. Okay, PG. I also want to buy the vacuum hanger from Peak Male Physique. How long does it take to ship to the EU? So the EU, it's a little weird right now because of the holidays, but it's usually about 2 weeks. And it also depends how deep into the EU you are. So, like, if you're in Hungary, it might take a bit longer than, say, Germany. But it's the hardest part's customs, because, like, it's going to be aired to your nearest airport and then customs, and it depends on how your custom works. Has vibration been proving results yet? Like I said, I know I gained with it, with evidence. Some of my people in Gainathon have been showing some pretty crazy results with it, but I cannot say for sure that these guys gained from vibrations at the same rate I did, and it was solely because of vibrations. Any other implementation, granted, I'm not on Reddit nearly as much, or like the specific vibration community that they made has shown any like evidence of accelerated gains. So that's why I'm like putting a pin in it until like I can actually get back to PE. Also, BD, in your opinion, I'm overdoing it with twice a day approach, 20-30 minutes of manuals, and then 15 minutes of pumping twice a day. If you're just starting, I would dial it back. Honestly, like pump right before bed, and then do the 20 minutes of stretching either in the morning or right before the pumping. And then what you really should be doing instead of the 2 sessions is just piss pools, or what was it? Hood something. But anyway, 20, like do that throughout the day for, I don't know, 7 to 8 times, and that's going to get you the shape training that you're going to need, as well as not overly fatiguing the tissues. Discrete task. Would you elaborate why Lugol's iodine treatment further in your latest videos? Yeah, I'd probably have Hank come on as well, because like he's the one that really pointed out how dangerous it was to me. So like it's an easy collab. Red, I just saw the most recent comment about when will Big Box be back in stock. So we're literally just waiting on cock rings, guys. If we put a disclaimer up, we can set up orders for it, because like I've ordered 3,000 more cock rings. But you know, Red, go ahead and turn it on for now, and like we'll just let it go. Worst case scenario, we'll just send them the cock rings secondary. Because like I'm assuming most of you guys just want the dick pump and the vacuum hanger. The cock rings are nice to have, but you don't need them right away. Okay, Dave, I bought your book of length, and when checking your pre and post session size, what is the best way to check size? It's always going to be stretch flaccid. And yes, your pubic skin will stretch with your stretch flaccid. If you're trying to fix that a bit, look into some foreskin restoration, or use an extender while you do your length, because it's going to help stretch the skin more. Red, then what was I looking at about glycolic acid? When I do my video, will be definitive on what we're doing for Peak Male Physique's 2-step solution to discoloration. All right, I still need to have some research to do. But anyway, but yeah, back to Dave. Always stretch flaccid when you're measuring fatigue rate and strain rate. You can do it in device for strain rate. I think that's the only way you can do it, yeah. So only measure for strain is the 4 to 6% jump in device. And then after you take everything off, that's when you measure fatigue. It's always going to be stretch flaccid. I will say I am always a little bit longer erect after a length session. So keep that in mind. YSN, what is a good time for using extender if I'm using 8 pounds of tension? So you have 2 levers, right? So you have your weight lever, and then you have your time lever. Both of these are going to control how much work you actually do. So you can start at 8 pounds, which I don't recommend, but then you only start at a low amount of time. And then you slowly increase that time to upwards to 40 to 60 minutes. And then you can slowly increase the weight under my model. In general, your sweet spot for like high tension stuff is going to be 40 to 60 minutes. Your sweet spot for low tension stuff is going to be about 2 to 6 hours. The weight is going to be more dependent on how long you've been doing PE than anything else. And we can really drag out that time under, that progressive overload. Like I can probably get most people to go from 5 pounds to 10 pounds. And it would take them an entire year to get that far. So just take it slow. Your main lever should always be time at first. Christian, I'm 7 inches long by 5.5 in girth. I want to reach 8.25 in length, and I don't want to get more than 6.1 in girth. He wants to know if he can get to 8.25 in length while getting thicker than 6.1. You can. It's a little arbitrary why you wouldn't want to get thicker than 6.1, but I would. There's rarely any correlation between length gains and girth gains. Like, basically, my girth has been pinned between 6 and 6.25 for the past 2 or 3 years, while my length has grown consistently. So don't worry about it too much. The main thing is like you change the ratio of what you're trying to do. So like if you're not trying to gain a lot of girth, don't pump a lot. If you're trying to gain a lot of length, do extend or hang a lot. And then you just do a little bit of pumping to fill in that new casing. Okay, DJ Hard Smile, you mentioned a blockage building up from wearing cock rings after pumping. My skin is purplish post-session, which is normal. Besides a small area in the middle of my shaft that stays normal skin tone as the blood isn't there. Is this a blockage? No, that is just typical like discoloration patterning. When I say blockage, it's called a lymphocele, or it could get to something severe as lymphangiosclerosis. Basically, there's going to be a pocket of edema that is blocked as if it was literally like a clogged pipe. And then the surrounding tissue begins to swell since it can't properly drain. If it doesn't drain, you can develop something called lymphangiosclerosis. And this is the main reason why Hank does not like wearing cock rings, because it increases the risk of lymphoceles and then the risk of lymphangiosclerosis. But what you're describing is not that, it's just typical discoloration. Nori, cup sizing is huge for sure. For blisters, yes. Like in general. This is something I learned the hard way this year. Like I had 3 or 4 blisters back to back to back because like I hate to brag about it, but I have a huge cock and the big size stuff just doesn't fit me anymore. So that like, I don't know if that's necessarily the play, is to like continue getting the larger end stuff, because like we did 2 1/8 and it's literally sold as much as like our 7-inch sizes, but the 7-inch sizes did not drop in sales, right? So like either there's a lot of people looking to upgrade for PE or like, I don't know, but it's interesting when you actually look at the numbers, they don't really make sense when it comes to our sales. Okay, I'm just gonna call you Kumar. How much non-bone press increase if 1 inch is gained? So it depends on how fat you get in the meantime. So for me, my body weight, I'll just say body fat percentage, will fluctuate up to like 22% to like 15% normally. I'm working on getting down to that coveted 10%. But in that time frame, I will lose about 1/2 inch of my fat pad every time. So like I could go from 8.5 to 9, but like if I gained that 10 pounds of fat with it, my dick did not grow at all in exposed length. So it really most likely depends on how much body weight you're carrying. If your weight's consistent, you will gain like 90% of that inch in visible usable length. Okay, PG. So when vacuum extending, your tip would not to do an hour straight away and take it off frequently to assess the situation, even if you have taped. I personally don't think taping is that great, but yes. It's going to be very hard to tell if you have a blister coming in under tape. But still, just take the time off. It's going to make sure that if you're like developing a blister, it has time to like reset more than anything else. So how do you increase base girth? So base girth honestly is pretty easy to gain. It really depends on your shape. So like I have a cone dick shape naturally. So like I gained a lot more base girth faster than the rest of my shaft because there's just more tissue to work with originally. But in general, pumping's going to do it. Just make sure that your skin, it does not fill the pump rather than the tissue. So like when I pump with a 7-inch inner circumference tube, I pack it at the base, so I won't be growing any more base girth. But if I use an 8-inch circumference tube, then I can actually expand the base, and then my base girth will grow. So that's the easiest thing, is just making sure you have a large enough cylinder to let the base stretch. Then if we're using clamping, that pressure right on the base actually causes irregular growth patterns. And since the corpus cavernosum is sinusoidal, which means it's just like a sponge, the irregularities don't make any difference compared to the rest of the tissue. So like when I was clamping a lot, I swear to God, my base girth was like 7.5 inches. And then I lost a bit, probably because it was inflammation mostly. But there is a growth avenue from just clamping at the base. But you gotta, if you're like really top heavy, you know, so like you got an actual baseball bat, what you're gonna have to do is limit the expansion at the top of the dick with like a silicone sleeve while you're pumping, so that way the base can expand more than the top of the dick. And like if you want to grow the top of your dick, do the opposite. So wear a silicone sleeve around the base while you pump to make sure that the top half of your dick's actually expanding compared to your base. Is it a good idea to pump after vacuum hanging? Almost always. Because basically what you're doing is you're stretching out the collagen of the tunica albuginea, and then we have to tell the blood holding tissue of the corpus cavernosum to grow and fill in that new space created by hanging. That's like the most layman way to put it, but like to me, you're always going to need a little bit of girth work with your length work to have optimal results. Okay, so Nacho Macho has a 1.75. His entire base fills it up to the 1 inch mark and presses hard against the dorsal side of the shaft. It feels painful against the vein. Should I use a bigger pump? First, use lube if you're not already. If you are, you probably want to get a 2.0. Okay, Durandal, what vibration motor do I recommend in what setting? Let me go grab it. All right, so forgot about this one part. So originally I said the big gray motor, right? And this is part of the reason why I'm like kind of kicking myself in the pants, because I found two smaller motors that work exceptionally well, particularly for like length gains. So first one, they're gonna be both probably from AliExpress. This is the 2838 vibration motor. Is it gonna show up on screen? If not, Red, could you type in 2838 in chat, vibration motor? So this is like 3 inches long. So it works a lot better for average guys. And then there's an even smaller one that is, Red, can you type this in? 2430 vibration motor. Much smaller. This is like 2 3/4 long. And it's really good for length. This one's gonna be more like if you're trying to pump. This one's gonna be more if you're trying to gain length. They both will use the same vibration block. For the blue, like medium-sized blue one, you're gonna wanna turn it to like here, okay? And then for the smaller one, since it's actually a faster RPM, it needs even less power. It's gonna be like a little bit less, so like a fifth of the way up compared to a third of the way up, or a quarter of the way up. What we're looking for is a slight tingling sensation, and it should be pleasant. With the big gray one that I used originally, that shit would rock your pants. Like I would feel it in my rib cage sometimes, depending how I was sitting. So we only need the vibration therapy in one spot. And if we're doing direct contact, we need very little vibrations. So if you're trying to copy me for whatever reason, get one of the smaller motors that I just mentioned. Let's see if Red put those in chat. Nope. So 2838 2430 vibration motor. So look that up on Amazon and AliExpress and you should be able to find them pretty quickly. But I don't have a good link for you right now. I'm just looking for where we left off, guys. Let's see. Man, I did miss some shit. Hold on. There we go. When will the big box be back in stock? Red, did you flip that stuff around for me yet? I'll let you know. Just Jude, BD. How long should I use my extender when starting to extend? I've been pumping and doing manuals for about a year or so. Thank you for all your content. So you're going to implement the interval length protocol. If you don't know what that is, look it up. But you're going to do at most 30 to 40 minutes total to start at about, let's say, 5 to 7 pounds, and then assess from there. We'd rather start slow and make sure you're not getting blisters or anything and causing overwork for the first month or two, and then you can pump up the tension a bit and the time a bit more. But like, really you just want to learn how to use the tool first, then you can start playing around with the higher level stuff. What's the average girth a man should have? Well, should have and does have is two separate questions, right? So I'm pulling up Calc SD and we really need to get this on our own site. So Calc SD is a tool that has some dubious, how do you put it, guys? Some dubious data in it right now, and that's particularly for the Western average data set. So don't do Western average, because basically they allowed a study in that measures the dick pointing down all the way down their leg, and if I do that, I'm literally like 10.5 inches long. So like, their averages are very skewed for the Western average right now. Don't bother with it. But so the average girth is going to be like 4.75. No, it's going to be 4.65, okay? So like, that's going to be what a man should have. Now, if we are going to, let's see, is there a full calculator anywhere? Let me switch to the old version. Just because I like this one a bit better. What'd I do? Oh no, I turned on magnifier. Oh, this is embarrassing. But what I was going to do is I was going to show you the Z-scores of everything, and this is terrible. There we go. The Z-scores. So let's say, so we said 4.75, right? Or 4.65. Actually showing me the average right now. So 4.58 is the average girth. The Z-score is basically going to show you what the top 2/3 of men will have. So if we add a 1/2 inch to this size and go to 5.2, or is it just 5? It's just 5. And then we go down all the way to 4. We're gonna get like 70 to 80% of men are gonna fall between 4 to 5 inches. So most men should be between 4 to 5 inches. And then anything over, let's say 5 1/4 is gonna be like classically big. Like statistically speaking, 5 1/4 is going to be 1 out of 10 men will be that big or bigger. That's gonna be the equivalent of being 6'1" or taller. Same thing goes for length. So 5.5 is about the average. Most men are gonna be between 6 1/4 and let's say 5, right? Yeah, so like 60 to 80% of men will be between 5 and 6¼ inches, or like 4 3/4 and 6¼ And then if you're over 6.5, I believe. Yeah, if you're over like 6¼ to 6.5, that's the equivalent of being like 6'1" in dick. Okay, so if you're 6'1" tall, it'd be the equivalent of having a 6.5 inch penis. Now, those two things are completely separate variables, genetically speaking. So like tall people are not supposed to have a 6.5 inch dick, for example. But like the statistic occurrence of it happening is comparable. Okay. Hopefully I didn't confuse you guys too much with it. It's been a while since I took statistics. So PG, yeah, I'm still a beginner. Really don't want to do anything consistent yet for months, but would you say that doing 30 minutes of manuals and 15 to 20 minutes of pumping can be done 7 times a week? You probably want like 1 to 2 rest days in general when you're starting out, and then you want to be able to modulate how much work you're doing. So like on your off days, if you're trying to do 7 days a week, you would just pump and then only do like 70% of your pressure just to keep the tissues dilated, but without overly fatiguing. Hitman, have I tried any appetite suppressant for your fat loss? I am finishing up my entire first 2-week vlog of my dieting, and you will learn everything that I'm doing there. Okay, I think it's quite interesting. So obviously you're subscribed, so you'll see it. But like if you're interested in how I lost like 3 to 5% of my body fat in 2 weeks, that's how I did it. How are girth gains different compared to pumping and clamping? So pumping is external pressure. Clamping is internal pressure. Most guys are going to do just fine with external pressure, but some of them, like let's say 10 to 20% of guys, are going to have lymphatic issues where they just swell profusely anytime they're under external pressure. So they need to use clamping to get that expansion, because you can get blood holding tissue to expand and you can get your lymphatic tissue to expand. It's 2 separate channels, right? So you can get back channeling the lymphatic fluid, and that's what causes like pumpers edema. And then you can get the blood vessels to expand, and that's what actually causes growth. So in premise, there is no real difference in gains from clamping and from pumping. Granted, clamping might have more of an angiogenic effect, meaning like it's going to be less of shape changing and more like tissue density building. But in general, they both do the same things. It just depends on how you set up your routines. Also, do we know of any examples of people who gained a 1/2 inch in length, or 1.5 inches in length, stopping completely, and they had left after stopping PE? I don't think I know of any people that have lost that much size in general. Like, I lost like 1/2 inch from COVID, but I've never actually seen people lose that much length. They'd have to have like crazy erectile dysfunction to lose that much. I don't know many people coming back after they hit their goals to come like do it again. Yeah. Robbie, sorry. Why does my pee shrivel up in balls when I stand, not when I sit or sleep? Because you have a tight ass, my friend. So this is something I've been like researching more and more lately. But your pelvis is wrapped by muscles, right? So if those muscles are tight and causing your pelvis to like twist upwards or backwards, it's going to put weird pressure on your pelvic floor. So let's say you have a tight ass and a tight lumbar, and it literally is squeezing your pelvis together. And when you engage those muscles while you're standing, it does not allow your, it causes your pelvic floor muscles to tighten completely because there's pressure on them. So that way your blood can't get into your penis, and therefore you're gonna have a small shriveled flaccid. So the easiest way to fix this is doing like lumbar stretches, glute stretches, and hamstring stretches for the most part. and then we can get into some more advanced like flexibility stuff as well. But like in general, most pelvic floor dysfunction is going to be from having a tight ass. Okay, you know, a tight hips, a real white man's problem. Juan Martinez, is it okay for the head of my head to turn purple while extending? So if you're using like a vacuum cup, it's going to be relatively common because you are basically holding coagulated blood in the tip, right? So it happens. What you don't want it to do is like turn blue and then black. Okay, that means like there is no oxygen whatsoever. If you're using like a compression extender or noose extender, same idea. Make sure it doesn't get any more than purple. Purple's expected, blue is dangerous, black is bad. So football talks. Hey BD, can I do manual stretching by itself to help in girth gains? I wouldn't say manual stretches will cause girth gains. It will cause erection quality increase. But like if you're trying to do a manual girth routine, what I would do is a bunch of massage mechanics and then something called mod jelks to cause that expansion, because like the primary driver for girth gains is going to be expansion. So like the easiest way is with a pump, second easiest way is with a clamp, the hardest way is going to be with your hands, but it is definitely doable. Christopher, thank you, and the cups as well. You are welcome. Hitman, what do you think about the people who say they're 8+ normally and say they are too small? First, they might be trolls. Second, they might be measuring wrong. Third, they have crippling body dysmorphia. And I have definitely been there with the body dysmorphia part. But in general, I would assume that most of these people are having a laugh more than that they actually are too small. In our community, it's more likely that they have severe body dysmorphia, but it's mostly going to be like guys that are like, let's say 6.5 to 7.5 that don't realize that they're actually quite large because they're consuming so much porn. Guys, when they're over 8.5 inches, they know they're big. The problem is like they probably watched some fucked up shit as a kid and now expect themselves to have these like literal like hentai dicks when, you know, that's just not possible without a lot of PE, obviously. Thoughts on foreskin restoration? Okay, so I particularly think it's very useful for aesthetics. It's going to help with sensitivity as well. I have been trying to do it. I didn't do it today, but like I do practice it. Poorly, but I practice it. With PE, it's going to help keep your skin nice and normal looking so you don't get like a huge like pseudo fat pad from skin pulling up from hanging, for example. But I think it's probably worth the time for a lot of guys to get like probably an inch extra skin just for sensitivity. And it also makes sex better because you have less friction from, you know, skin to vag contact. And those rufflings allow for the moisture to stay more inside the orifice, so you don't need to use as much lube. So like there was a huge benefit to having foreskin solely just for that. Are there any vitamins besides supplements like Vigor that help with PE, like K2 or something? I don't know of any like direct vitamins, but like basically Hink has formulated everything except for maybe Vitality to help with PE in some regard. So for example, Vigor is going to help with blood flow, but the Shield is going to keep your nerves healthy, and I know that has a bunch of vitamin B in it. Safeguard is going to keep your soft tissues healthy to avoid scarification and all that jazz. Then Fortitude is going to be like a natural Viagra, and that's probably one of the most important supplements you can take for PE, just because like I notice a difference on it even when I'm on Cialis. So to me, like, you don't have to buy from us, but like go and look at the ingredients on our website. That's the stuff you should be looking to add. Our stuff is just a relatively affordable way to get everything that Hank thinks you need to be most optimal for penis enlargement. So Discreet Talks, thanks for all your support and research. I did the Lugol's iodine skin peel 6 months ago and actually repaired my stretch marks. Was hoping to redo it in 6 months. Really hoping you guys find a safe way. So basically, the safe way is just not using an iodine-based solution. Any skin peel that you can get is going to be probably safer than iodine. Like, iodine was used first in the 1850s, dude. So, like, just get a modern skin peel and use that instead. And then instead of trying to do it all at once, do it, like, over the course of a month. Okay? That's going to be your safest bet. Androgen receptor. I can't get 100% erect for side clamping. I think you meant soft clamping. Will it still work at 60 to 70% erect for pumping or clamping gains over time? So if you have erection quality issues, it probably makes more sense to be using a pump. Because let's say you get to, let's say 70, 80% like you said, then you can pump up the rest of the way with unnatural pressure to get to that 100% erection, and then you'll start growing. With a clamp, it's going to be a bit harder to get to like the maximum erection size. It's possible, but it's going to take more effort. That being said, when I say go and erect for the cylinder, it's more so that the tissue is already dilated, and that way it's easier to work out upon. But like if you can't get to like a full size erection, use a pump. They're literally designed for erectile dysfunction to begin with. All right, guys, I will be right back. I'm pretty sure my dogs need in, so entertain yourselves for like a minute and a half. I think I only lost 5 concurrents in that little break, so not too bad. Okay, so we did the vitamins. My base is pretty slim, but my upper part is thicker. Yeah, that's a relatively common like shape pattern, to be honest. Like, honestly, I think the most rare shape is a perfect cylinder. So enjoy your curves, guys. So you guys probably got me for about 15 to 20 more minutes, and then I got to bounce. Okay. Thad Castle. I did 90 minutes of manual stretches every day for years. I stopped gaining, and now I do a break. How long does it take to lose the strength adaptation? So if we look at an Achilles tendon, and that fucker is built for strength, okay, it takes about 3 months to lose 2/3 of the strength adaptation. So like if you take a 3-month break, assuming that the penis is literally as strong as the Achilles tendon, it's not, but it's going to take you about 3 months to get back to like baseline strength. I normally say take 4 to 6 weeks off for a deconditioning and go from there. But if you've done, it depends on how long you haven't been gaining and still been trying to gain, if we're gonna figure that out, how long you need to take. Christopher Odell, thank you for your knowledge and wisdom. You are welcome. And I do want to just make an army of big dick men, apparently. But let's see. VD, will you go for 10, and do you think it's even possible to reach it at that point you're at? I have seen no reason why I couldn't hit 10. So like the logical side for me is like, don't get bigger than 10, but like the fetish side of me is like, get as big as fucking possible. But I'm probably gonna go for 10 and then take an extended break and go from there. But it's definitely possible. Like there's no like law of biology that says it's not possible. If your main focus is gaining length, SYM, will you be using a pump after compression hanging or slow down the length gains? No, that's going to help length gains because remember, there's like two different types of tissue we need to worry about. There's going to be the endothelial tissue and there's going to be the collagenous tissue. You need both to grow. They both have slightly different stimulus requirements. So for endothelial tissue, you need internal pressure to cause it to grow and expand. Meanwhile, for collagen, it just needs to stretch. So directional stretching is going to grow the length, and then a little bit of pumping is going to grow the insides of the tunica albuginea. I'll be going back to the beginner's guide so I won't hurt myself, and I love taking notes. I just hope no one finds your notebook, my guy. JB, what do you think about Bib's lot theory? I think that's what, loss of tug back. Sounds like complete bullshit. It is complete bullshit, but there was one thing that he was right about, and that's like the angle of the ligament determines on how much you can stretch the ligament originally. So like the idea with lots of tug back is like, so let's say your dick points straight up, or wait, was it the tension? So basically whatever your erection angle can get to naturally is the opposite of the angle that you need to be targeting. So like if you have a very high erection angle, you need to be doing between the cheeks stretching. That's correct. But if you point out here, that means you need to come out here to train that angle. It is complete nonsense when you look at that, but like the only smidge of truth to that is like if you have a high erection angle, you can loosen the ligaments by doing like between the cheeks stretching to drop that angle. And then they probably had something to do with flexibility of the suspensory ligament. But a lot of that old shit was based off the idea that you couldn't grow more penis. And like, that is just not a fact. They used to think that you could pull out internal penis. But again, if you did that, you would fuck up your pelvic floor for life. Will extending between straight out and straight up, will it be able to put more tension on the shaft? There's not as much tension on the pelvic floor. So you got to be a little bit careful extending straight up because it actually like hooks up and under and pulls the pelvic floor. That's what I've noticed at least. So straight up, be very careful using. You really want to be doing mainly just straight up and straight down. You can alternate between it, but like there's no real evidence for alternating angles like that, except that you might have a slightly higher tension variance at the bottom doing straight down, and then more towards the middle of the shaft doing straight out. So Hitman, I'm curious to know what your diet is going to be for Thanksgiving. So we're hosting. My wife doesn't like sweets, so I'm just going to give all the leftovers to my brother. So like I don't have to worry about snacking like that. Then I'm just not going to eat the entire morning before because that's what I'm doing now. And then I'll have a normal-ish plate of about 1,500 calories and then probably come back for a second and put me at 2,500 calories, and that'll be enough for me to sustain myself throughout Thanksgiving. So it's really not that big of a deal. I don't really believe in binging. So how do you cement gains as Kenny Wallace? So for the most part, gains, if they're legitimate, will stick around. You will lose about 2 to 5% of your length. So let's say you are 6 inches when you're done. You'll probably fall back to about 5 7/8 to 5 3/4, right? Not the end of the world. The easiest thing to do is just get up to like 6 1/4, and then you'll revert back to 6. But like if you do lose size first, check your erection quality. If you don't have like the most active, healthy lifestyle, your erection quality is going to plummet. You're like supplementing having good cardio health with a penis pump. And that's obviously not good long term. Then if you lose like a lot of girth, you probably never actually gained a lot of girth. You probably just had a lot of chronic inflammation, and then you lost that 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. That was just because you had swelling 24/7 rather than new tissue development. But in general, if either of those happen, you either need to work on your erection quality or you just didn't gain girth. Okay, let's see. Don't know. I saw your past content on using massage guns for release. How are you feeling about it now? So now that I moved over to like vibration, this little guy is going to be a bit more effective, and it has something to do with stroke rate. So like a percussive massage gun is probably going to move about a centimeter, right? That's good for deep muscle tissues, but for something as tiny and sensitive as the penis, not a good idea. You're actually better off getting like a massage wand, if you know what I'm talking about, and go with that instead if you want to do that. But like in general, it's going to be more about the frequency than it is going to be about the power of the device. TJM started Vertica trials in Miami and will let you know the outcome in 6 months. It's like radio frequency, correct me if I'm wrong. Add 15 minutes of fulcrum hangs to the extender, vibration pumping, and regular hanging. Thoughts on fulcrum hanging? I'm not a huge fan of them because like basically you're bending your dick over something, and that's like a brute force thing, right? So like if you need to do that, it was probably more wise to take a month or two off to do that easily and safely than cause an even bigger strength adaptation once you add in that fulcrum. It would be useful for correcting a curve, but like I don't prescribe them ever into my like client routines or anything like that otherwise. Girth Too Big would like me to tell you guys to drop a like, so go ahead and do that if you so desire. I would just prefer you guys to come back tomorrow. What is a good set time to use for an extender, 5 or 10 minutes? Also, what's a good rest time between sets? So, it depends what level you are and how much rest you actually need. But like if you're doing the interval length protocol, I only go for like 15 seconds between sets. And then I do 5 minutes. Well, actually I do 1 minute for 10 minutes. So 10 1-minute sets. And then you do 5-minute sets following that until you hit elongation, or you know, about 30 to 40 minutes of device wear in total. Hey BD, do you see the pressure reading change on an auto pump if you reverse Kegel? Ask Chrome. I don't see it when I reverse Kegel, I see it when I Kegel. So yeah, that should happen. So TJM asked if I'm still pumping 3 times a day, and are you mostly doing vibration with extending and not pumping? So I'm actually on break for right now. It's just a bit too busy right now to actually dedicate time to PE. When I get back to it, it's going to be back to the extender. I'm probably going to be pumping twice a day just because it fits better in my schedule. But I would think that chronic dilation is going to be your best bet for overall shape change. I ordered the Fortitude, but the Goose at Canada Post are on strike. So lucky for you, I'm pretty sure most of our international stuff is by UPS now. So I would have to check, but there's a good chance, unless I'm wrong, and I'm sorry, but you'll get it eventually, whether it be after the strike or next week. Christian, will we see a Black Friday discount on the ebooks? Probably not. So if you want the book, just get it. I know Hank's doing a Black Friday for his course and stuff. I don't really believe in sales because like that means you're not giving a fair value to your customers to begin with normally. I'm not saying that Hank is a digital good, so it's hard to tell like how much it's actually worth. But like, for example, if a seller has a device that is $250 and they're able to give you it for $70 off on Black Friday for one day, that means their profit margins are going to be at least $70 off the original sale and still be making money. So that doesn't jive with me well. And that's something you just got to be aware of in general when you're looking for stuff. Lotes, what signs that you need to rest? I did a video like a year or two ago about this, but like the main thing is going to be erection quality, erection staying power, and skin health. So like if your skin's beat up, that's a good sign that the collagen in the tunica is also beat up. Then the erection quality, that means your pelvic floor is probably fatigued, or like the tissue is stiff and inflamed and it's hard to like expand. So you need a break. And then if your pelvic floor is fatigued, your erections won't stay around as long because like they're tired, it needs a break. It's like any other normal muscle. So that's going to be your main three. And then loss of sensation is also something you need to pay attention for. If you drop erection angle, do you gain, maintain, or lose size? So most of the time you'll gain a bit of insertable length, but for the most part it's not going to be substantial. Like we're talking maybe 1/4 of an inch. If you increase your erection angle, it could be more, but like, so like think about it this way. Your pelvis is like, I'm trying to figure out. So this is your penis, right? If we pull out the pelvis or the fulcrum, not the fulcrum, the ligament, you see how more of it's getting exposed outwards. That's what's happening. There's going to be a point though, like where that gap is, where that's just where the ligament's sitting. But since it's soft tissue, you can push in against it. You actually have more insertable length on top of it. But like in general, you'll have more usable length, visible length. And then on top of that, you'd be able to push in deeper because the ligament soft tissue compared to bone. So Faith in Progress says length gains are so much easier than girth. So Faith is my first hard gainer hotline, right? My guy caught COVID and now thinks he lost all his girth gains, but like when you have such a traumatic illness, your tissue gets tight. And I think he's just a little bit anxious more than anything else. I'm pretty sure most of his girth gains that he did gain will come back within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So just have faith, ironically. Weaverton, you said Angion message is too mature, existing tissues in traditional PE creates new tissue. So you said now after reaching 10 and give it a break, would you try Angion method? So like, no, I would not. So this was probably what, like 3 years ago that I said that. I think Angion method, if it actually had any benefits beyond the nonsense that Janice said, it would have been proven by now. It has been known for at least 6 years. And I hate Janice, like in general. Like I think he's a very annoying human being. But it would have made more sense for him to like go down the physiotherapy path earlier. And the idea is like if you twiddly winks on your dick and do a very high rapid flow with the blood in your penis, you cause shear stress, and that causes a whole bunch of growth factor release. You know what else causes growth factor release? Pumping. You know what else causes growth factor release? Clamping. So like if you're really just trying to keep your penile tissue healthy, pumping twice a week for 10 minutes is probably going to be more effective than Angion method ever could be in that same amount of time. So skin peel stays a solution and there's a better modern alternative. Could you give me names or some? Lugol's is definitely scary with the burning effect. Still wishing a safe, detailed protocol. So like I use glycolic acid. It's like Red recommends 10 to 20%. You leave that on your dick for like 3 to 5 minutes. You'll have a slight tingling feeling, and then you might need a neutralizer to stop the burning, you know, the peel, but it's not that big of a deal if you don't have it, especially if you're doing such a light solution. But like really glycolic acid, salicylic acid, there's a few others that are pretty common off the shelf. Okay, let's see. So Girth too big. By that logic, if you want to keep 10 inches gain, don't you have to get up to like 10.5? Maybe. So I've been like literally measuring my erect size every day, not every day, every week on this deconditioning break, and I haven't seen a drop yet, but it's only been like 3 weeks. So it just depends on like how flexible you got and how much that impacted your erection stuff, like quality. But like, yeah, I probably need to overshoot if I actually was going to stop PE, but I'll probably do some kind of maintenance to stay part of the culture. But that's in general. And like, if I'm being honest, guys, like my wife is a size queen, so like I have no clue what her actual limit is, and or like, you know, so I might just be in it for the long haul for all I know. So any tips for premature ejaculation? So again, there's a few, like there's a whole bunch of variables. First, the most hard one to figure out is mental. If you get anxious before sex and you're worried about not coming, you're more likely to come. Or you're going to have the opposite effect and not be able to come at all. It's not that fun, speaking from experience. And then the other one, we alluded to this later or earlier on the stream, is that if you have a tight pelvic floor and those muscles are already tense, it's like having your hand on the trigger or your finger on the trigger, half cocked, ready to blow. So work on your pelvic floor health with a bunch of hip stretching and glute stretching, hamstring, lower back, all that jazz. That should help loosen up the pressure on your pelvic floor. And then there's a few supplements that you can take. We're looking into that here at Leviathan. But in general, it's more than likely going to be a mental game. And then you could practice something called edging, which is basically you get to very close to the point of no return, and as you get closer and closer, you slow down and really try to edge it out. And then when you're just about to come, you stop for about a minute, and then you keep going until you do it for like 10 to 20 minutes, and that way you can build up your actual sexual endurance. Okay. BD, do you use a vibration motor while pumping or while extending? If you use it while pumping, where and how should you place it on the motor? Thank you so much. So imagine this is the pump. Imagine this is the motor. That's it. To cut down on rattle, you might want to put a bit of silicone sleeve in there, like, you know, like a vacuum hanging sleeve. But like I've been using a thick neoprene strap and then just like putting it between the pump and the cylinder, like so. And then I take this and wrap it around all the way and latch it to itself on the back, and then it keeps it pretty much in place. Same rules apply. You only want like maybe 20 to 30 hertz, and then only do upwards of 30 minutes of time with the vibrator. But like if we're doing pumping, you really only need 20 minutes with it. Thad Castle, in the first 2 years I gained, but the next 4 years I stopped gaining. Okay, so you're going to need like 3 to 6 months off. So like I would say take 2 months off, Thad, come back, and then see what you can do with my stuff. Okay, Red, we'll have to talk a bit more offline. They're not picking Orange, they're picking Economy, and then Orange Service is basically the cheap third-party version for like post office to post office. So that's the issue. Chad Longshalong. How long do you think that the spinal disc can lengthen under the same PE logic? They are cartilage, and the bones can also lengthen since they're made out of collagen. I don't think bones are made out of collagen, but while you can increase the spinal disc space, since they're like individual packed units, what really happens is that there's just more air between or more space between the vertebrae and the, what did you say, the spinal disc. So like they're little pads that act for flexibility and padding between the spinal column, right? You can't really change the shape of your bones without breaking them. But once you do break them, you just add a little bit of space in between the bones over time, and that's how bone shaping works. For spinal cord, not spinal cord, for disc, the disc of the spine, they can't really change shape like that. But what you can do, and I've noticed this, is work on your lower back health, because like you can fix the spinal compression with stretching and everything like that, chiropractic work, and like you can probably gain, I want to say 2 inches of height, because that's like your true height if you have poor posture to begin with. 6-year-old BD will have to have a wheelbarrow. Yeah, there's going to be an obvious limit on how big I get. Right? What routine that you get the more results from? What is the routine you get the most results from? It really depends on what you can do consistently is going to be what gives you the most results, right? So there's a few guidelines in general from like all my stuff. If you want more information on that, check out choose your own length routine and choose your own girth routine on this channel. But basically, you only want to do about 30 to 40 minutes of high tension work a day, and then 3 to 5 minutes of massage mechanics, and about 10 minutes of pumping for length. And then we've been playing around with this idea called retention. That means you try to stay in your biggest shape for as long as possible. And then with girth, we're going to be trying to do 20 to 30 minutes of dilation with about 5 to 10 minutes of massage beforehand, 5 to 6 days a week. And that's going to be probably your best bet for either. Robbie Barter, thank you for the super chat. I would be happy with 6x5 if anything else is a bonus. That is honestly quite a big dick. So like, I have Calc SD open right now. I'm switching it to, so you're saying 6x5. Yeah, so 6 inches non-bone press, guys, is in the 94th percentile, which means that your dick is going to be longer than 1 out of 20 men. I mean, you'll be the longest out of 20 men. So 19 out of 20 men will be shorter than you, okay, at 6 inches non-bone pressed. And then with 5 inches girth, you would be in the 79th percentile. So if there's 5 guys in a room, 1 guy would be thicker than you, is usually how that is explained. Or if there's 5 guys in a room, 1 guy will be 5 inches or thicker. The rest will be smaller than that. Since using vibration, I'm up to 6.5 girth post pumping. Perhaps it's the vibe directly over the fulcrum on the bends. So like, I'm assuming you mean the fulcrums. Thanks for all your info. I need to send money for all the free value you've given. Guys, you don't have to give me any money. If you really want to support me, buy from PMP, Leviathan, or my book, okay? But thank you for the offer. Yeah, so vibrations causes the tissues to relax, and that allows for very rapid expansion. And then it's kind of like a compounding effect. Since those tissues are relaxed, the next time you do it, they relax more, and then they should be able to stretch more subsequently. But then there'll be a certain point that you need to build more tissue to actually continue seeing that kind of progress. But I honestly am still pretty high on vibrations. It's just I have not seen evidence outside of myself, and as sound business goes, get as much data as you can before you make a big investment. Okay, I'm gonna get these last couple here and then I'm gonna head out. So Miguel got a PMP pump, not circumcised, and getting a lot of edema on my foreskin doing interval pumping. Building up to 200, I'm not sure if you mean 200 millimeters of mercury or 200 millimeters in length. I start getting cracks on the tip that I have to take a break. Okay, so to me, it sounds like you're using a lot of pressure and potentially too much time. So like the easiest thing to do is dial back your workload. So let's say you're doing 20 centimeters of mercury. Let's bring you down to like 16 centimeters of mercury. Sure, we want that, like, you know, slightly uncomfortable feeling, but like if it's literally ripping your skin apart, it's probably too much pressure for you. So that would be what I do. Take the time off to heal your glands and then come back, lower pressure, probably less time. RGS, he bought from the Netherlands our auto pump and cylinder. I'm glad you got it and thank you for your support. Hopefully we can get a European warehouse within the next 6 months or so. Are we supposed to have a C-ring before semi-erect bends, BFR, and mod jokes, and then a C-ring after pumping? So the cock ring during your massaging makes it much easier for you to do the massaging because you don't have to like grip at the base and then do it one-handed. Now, after pumping, I like the ring because it helps keep that shape for longer, and that should help with gains long term. But like, neither of them are needed. It's more like one's quality of life improvement. The other is just going to be potentially helping you gain in the future. Okay, and we actually got through that list. There was a lot of people on today. I'm not sure if it's just because it's fall break or I changed the thumbnail. But thanks for tuning in, guys. I will try to do this again tomorrow. Obviously, Thursday's Thanksgiving, so no promises on that one. But Friday, I'll be back. Okay, so tomorrow and Friday for sure. I will see you then, hopefully.